Welcome to a series look, a new video series where I take a look at a film series in a little bit more detail. Do I really need to say series that mate? I do. Once more. Series! Welcome to this, our first installment. It's also one of the first videos I've done where you can see my legs. There's one there. Look at it in all its glory. Have to add some sex appeal to this video, alright? Now, let's take a look at our first franchise, which is, of course, Child's Play. Before we take a series look, let's have a quick look first. The Child's Play series, also known as the Chucky series to some people, has spanned for 7 films, with a controversial remake soon to follow. We will get to the remake. Hold tight. Okay, we will get to it. It's mostly been a horror series, but then it went into comedy, and then it went into direct-to-DVD. So it's been all over the map, and probably more so than most horror series. Chucky is a very charismatic lead, and that's been something that's really lifted the franchise up and given it much more appeal. Also, the creativity of the kills have also really helped in that department. Chucky nonetheless has become something of a horror icon, probably because of how different he is to his stablemates in the same icon status. And he's permeated throughout pop culture.
It's fucking Chucky!
Just a second here, Chucky.
Shut the hell up.
Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Well, this looks like a good spot. Once I get my body back and reverse the gypsy curse, or whatever the hell my origin is.
Here's Chucky, the murderous doll.
Thank you.
Mancini took inspiration from the Cabbage Patch Kids, and his father was also working in advertising. So he intended to make a film that was a satire of how advertising affected children. And the dark side of Chucky has always been evident. Even before our character is turned into Chucky, his name was Charles Lee Ray. It's Ray from 3 famous murderers: Charles for Charles Manson, Lee for Lee Harvey Oswald, and Ray for James Earl Ray. Pretty good role models there, Chucky. Well, if we're going to talk about the origin of the character, I guess we might as well look at the very first film in the series.
Child's Play, of course being the title of the first entry in the series, was released in 1988. Now, I will admit, before starting these videos, this was the only one of the franchise I'd actually seen, and I wasn't all that impressed with it. The first time I saw it, at least. It follows the story of a serial killer known as the Lakeshore Strangler, or Charles Lee Ray, who is on the run after a failed robbery, and he gets chased by the police and killed in a toy store. But before dying, he uses a voodoo curse to transfer his soul into the body of a doll. You know, that old stereotype. It's goofy as hell, but again, it's a movie about a killer doll, so you can't complain too much, and I think it suits the character and the series as a whole. It's what gets you in the circus tent, and it definitely leans into that ludicrous premise. Our lead character is Andy Barclay, along with his mother, Karen. Andy is also a serial killer.
Alright, good guys. That's our good guys show for today. But don't go away for you.
Hey, good guys. Boy, have I got news.
He's massacring that cereal!
Andy really wants a good guy's doll for his birthday, so she buys him one, off a homeless guy on the street.
Oh my god. At least the guy selling creepy shit in Gremlins had a store. Come on, lady!
What I did enjoy and had actually forgotten about was the idea that Andy is suspected as the killer. It builds a good sense of suspense, with teasing whether Chucky is the killer, but maybe it waits a little bit too long to give us that doll murdering action. Although the positive side of that is that we get some interesting shots and scenes to prevent us seeing Chucky, and teasing his reveal works really well. What can I say, I'm just a sucker for a good character reveal. I do find it weird that we don't hear the doll say anything for a long time though. Like even the catchphrase the doll would say. Does the mom just think she bought a broken doll? Unfortunately, I don't think the child performance in this movie by Alex Vincent is any good. It's not awful. I mean, he's a child actor, but I guess it is what it is.
But Mom.
Right.
I will admit he does pretty well in one of the emotional scenes though.
Please don't leave me. Please.
And it's not that the performances in general are that great. It's a slasher film with a killer doll. We're not looking for Royal Academy graduates here. One thing I don't think the movie gets enough praise for is how well paced it is and how effective it manages to use its premise in a really creative way. Especially in the scene where it's revealed that the doll had no batteries in him the whole time.
Dun dun dun!
I kid around, but it's a fantastically executed scene. It's like the film reaches a breaking point where suspense is at its maximum, and we have to find out whether or not Chucky is real.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
And what follows is an incredibly intense scene that also manages to be satisfying in showing us the real Chucky.
You stupid bitch! You filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
The effects hold up pretty well too. Shockingly well, actually, to the point where I was curious how they did some of it. Looks far better than it should. Brad Dourif's voice is also perfect with Chucky. It's sort of a gravelly snideness in his voice that's great. He's amazing, except for a delivery of just one line.
Guys? Spies. Size. Fuck if I know.
Chucky gets told by his voodoo instructor that the longer he stays in the body, the more human he becomes, and that he must transfer his soul into the first person he told that he was alive, Andy. The film might be less gory than you would expect, and also less slashery, possibly due to the limits of using a doll as your antagonist, but he uses creativity to get around those limitations. For example, when he meets his voodoo instructor, a voodoo doll like Chucky, he uses a voodoo doll to kill him, and it's entirely satisfying. It's a great movie that probably gets relegated because of the goofy premise, but it does have some weird moments. I don't think the cops come out looking pretty good in this film. One of our leads is...
Oh! Christ, he's a cop!
Wait a sec. All it took for you to realise this guy was a cop was him kneeing that other guy in the balls? Okay then.
Oh! Christ, he's a cop!
They question a kid without a lawyer or a parent present. Hell, even our main cop guy, Mike Norris, is kind of creepy.
Karen.
What are you doing, you weirdo? The doctor doesn't come out looking that great either.
And he's going to kill me.
He does get his comeuppance at the end, of the other hand. Doesn't take away from the awesome moments though. How about the most incredibly unfortunate over-the-top death ever? Oh, and this is only a minor stupid thing, but check out this explosion.
Awesome.
Then there's the ending, which is amazing. Horror movies always have that ending where a villain finally catches up to our hero, and in this movie, it's a blast. Chucky doesn't go down easy either. He gets shot, lit on fire.
We're friends to the end, remember?
This is the end, friend.
Damn! He didn't go down easy. Well, still, he went down like a champ. Oh, Jesus, he's still going. Oh, okay, well now. So that's the first Child's Play. Oh, never mind, he's still going. Well, he didn't go down easy, but that was a hell of a death. Oh my god, will someone kill this fucking doll, please? Thank you. God, I thought that was never going to end. Okay, this is getting silly now. How useless is this guy? He can't take out half a doll. Alright, there we go. Took your time with that. You really just can't kill Chucky, which I'm sure we'll learn as we get deeper into this series. Oh, look, he's waving goodbye.
If you've never seen Child's Play, it's actually pretty great. It kind of gets dismissed because of its reputation for being silly, and it is at times, but it's also an effective little slasher film that makes the most of its fun premise. It's better than it has any right to be. Could I say the same thing for a sequel? Well, 2 years later, exactly 2 years later, we get a second Child's Play film, imaginatively titled, of course.
Horror sequels are often tricky to nail, but I feel like Child's Play 2 does a pretty good job. I think they know they can't get the same intense horror elements, so they make it a little bit gorier and campier, and it's actually a lot of fun. Because it feels like they knew they wouldn't reach the heights of the first and instead tried something a little bit different. The story takes place in real time, so exactly 2 years later, with Chucky's burnt body being refurbished. The Playpal's toy company is suffering due to the murders blamed on Chucky, so they decide to rebuild and reanimate to prove that there's nothing wrong with the doll. which is actually not a bad explanation for his return, and dealing with the toy company is a good angle to take. I like as well how it doesn't shy away from the end of the last movie, even though it felt like they'd sort of written themselves into a corner with that ending. So the man working on restoring him is electrocuted, and they cover it up as an accident and decide to dispose of Chucky somewhere.
What do you want me to do with the doll? Stick it up your ass.
That's not how he gets rid of him.
Oh hey, the kid actor is back. Yay. Andy is in foster care with a foster sister named Kyle, and his mother is put in a mental hospital. That is pretty dark. Chucky manages to escape. I love how calm this guy is as well when Chucky comes alive.
Jesus! God, okay, what? Okay, what do you want?
No questions, just drive.
Okay.
Oh, a talking voodoo doll with a knife. And over there, a dancing kangaroo with a top hat. Drugs really are amazing.
I don't know, maybe this happened to this guy before. Anyway, he goes after Andy and manages to infiltrate the foster house pretending to be a different good buddy doll. Which could be interesting with Andy having PTSD and thinking that Chucky is gone when he's really...
5 minutes later.
Never mind. That didn't last long. So much for that interesting idea. In fact, that's kind of my problem with the movie in general. It has some interesting ideas, but it seems to run away from them just to give us the same obvious constant confrontation between Andy and Chucky, which is less interesting. It feels like the movie just plays a bit safe. I like that Charles E. Ray gets trapped as Chucky though. I didn't see it coming when I probably should have, because there's all these sequels with Chucky. But then at the same time, in the sequels he's still trying to put his soul in people, so I guess he's not really trapped, but I enjoyed it in the moment at least. I think visually the film looks a bit better. The shots are a bit better in general, and the lighting and all that. Really good, but I do think Chucky looks a bit worse.
What are you looking at?
If there's one way the movie really ups its game though, it's how creative and enjoyable the kills are. We get some campy over the top kills.
You've been very naughty, Miss Kettlewell.
Some nasty, violent kills.
How's it hanging, Phil?
And some fun, creative kills too. Not to mention
the greatest death in cinema history. If only he could have seen this with his own two eyes.
As much as I think he looks worse, Chucky definitely has a bit more humour and personality to him this time, which would really help establish him as a Chucky a lot of people know. It would certainly be rounded out a bit more in the comedy sequels that would follow.
You goddamn women drivers!
He's got some pretty badass moments too though. Like when he tears his own hand off and puts a weapon in its place.
I hate kids.
Huh. Where have I seen that before? Groovy. The ending scenes in the factory are actually a lot of fun too. Although I feel Chucky is kind of easily disposed of. Twice. Oh, 3 times.
All that aside though, Child's Play 2 is a pretty fun sequel. It puts aside some of the horror elements and brings in more comedic ones, and it's mostly effective because of that. It's a worthy sequel. If you enjoyed the first film, you should check it out. Now if you wanted a bad sequel to Child's Play, you wouldn't have to wait long, because a little over 9 months later, we get one, with Child's Play 3.
You wouldn't have to wait long to see if Chucky was still alive. Just 9 months. You could have had a real baby named Chucky and how quickly they pumped this movie out. Well, they just make the doll again too. I guess these people never learn. I know, I shouldn't pick apart logic in a movie about a murdering voodoo doll, but anyway. It's been 8 years since the first film, 6 years since Child's Play 2, and the company are not positive about putting the good guy dolls back on the shelf.
When the company is finally getting back on its feet again, where is the wisdom in putting the good guy back on the market?
The good guy of the 90s.
But I guess money talks and they put them back out there. And since Chucky's body was in the factory, he's melted down and made into a new model of the Good Guys doll. And the obvious happens. Andy is now in a military academy, and Chucky looks to go after him again. Chucky looks like shit in this movie. Looks like they touched him up a bit too much with the remodel. Makes him far too creepy. He doesn't look like a doll any kid would actually want to play with. He's too obviously sinister. It also looks too different between when he's possessed and alive. I mean, that was a problem in the other movies, but it seems way more noticeable here. He's also less expressive. Yeah, this movie in general just kind of sucks. Feels a bit more sedated, like an episode of Goosebumps or something. Like, look at this death. What a lame way to show a guy being crushed by a garbage truck. Or how about this, I mean, I guess it's a kill.
Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Chucky's not even the creepiest thing in the movie. Want to see who is? You sure?
Yes. Oh, yes. We're seeing some skin now, aren't we? Kiss it goodbye. So the enemies couldn't grab a hold of it in battle and slit their throat.
Wish my barber cared about my hair that much.
Inevitably, of course, the two creepiest things in the movie have a bit of a showdown.
A haircut ain't regulation, soldier. When's the last time you had a trim, huh?
Presto, you're dead.
Ugh, well, that wasn't a very good line, but he does have some good lines in this movie.
It's definitely you. Don't fuck with the Chuck.
Tyler.
Yeah. Just think. Chucky's gonna be a bro.
Oh, by the way, did you know Chucky was amazing at darts? Watch this impossible shot. I like the last acts of the other two Child's Play movies, but this one, I don't know. It's like a war games at the military academy, and Chucky swapped out the fake bullets with real bullets. And then there's a haunted house at a carnival, but there's, roller coasters, and what's going on? What the hell is this movie trying to be? It's just way too much. Just tone it down a bit. Jesus.
Child's Play 3 is a pretty boring film, and it feels like there's nothing new in here. The horror elements are gone from the first film, or at least toned down, and the comedy and self-awareness of the second film are also toned down. And what you're left with is a very vanilla, stale Child's Play film. And a movie about a voodoo killer doll shouldn't ever be boring. It just feels stale. There's ideas in here, but they're never fully fleshed out, and I think that might be because there's such a short gap between the sequels. Apparently this is Mancini's least favourite in the whole series, and I'd be inclined to agree. Again, I do think it was probably because there was such a short gap between sequels, which would never happen again. In fact, we wouldn't get another Child's Play film for 7 years. At which point, Mancini would reinvent the franchise with a more comedic approach. Come back next time, where we're going to look at Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, where Chucky gets funny.